Ever feel like you're just drowning in a sea of shoulds, you know? Like, do more, be more, achieve more.
Right.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And today we're diving into Greg McKeown's Essentialism to find out how to kind of escape that feeling and really focus on what truly matters.
Yeah, McKeown's book really connects because it speaks to that common struggle of just, feeling overwhelmed by endless options and demands on our time.
It's like we're on this treadmill, you know? But McKeown's asking a really powerful question. Like, what if we could just step off and focus on that one thing?
Yeah.
And one thing that would make the biggest impact right now.
Yeah, and he calls that being an essentialist.
Okay.
And it really begins with just recognizing the trade-offs that we make every day, often without realizing it.
Yeah. And he tells this story, it's kind of cringeworthy, but so relatable
Right.
about feeling obligated to attend a client meeting while his wife was in the hospital after giving birth.
Oh, wow.
He knew it was the wrong choice, but that pressure to please was so strong.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of what he calls the paradox of success.
Er.
Early wins often lead to more options.
Right.
But then all those options can pull us in so many directions that we lose sight of what truly matters.
It's like we're scattering our energy instead of focusing it like a laser beam.
Exactly.
It's no wonder so many people feel successful but totally unfulfilled.
Yeah. And it's not just individuals, right? This happens with businesses all the time.
Oh, hopefully.
When Southwest Airlines first started, instead of trying to be everything to everyone, they chose to be the absolute best at low-cost, point-to-point flights.
Laser focused.
There you go.
So think about your own career.
Yeah.
Are you spreading yourself thin, trying to be everything to everyone? Or are you really honing in on what you do best and saying no to distractions?
And that's a key difference between, essentialists and non-essentialists.
Okay.
They get that not everything is created equal, which leads to McKeown's next big idea,
Okay.
separating the vital few from the trivial many.
And this is where he talks about the Pareto principle.
Exactly, yep.
The 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
I'm already picturing my to-do list with a big red X through like 80% of it.
It's tempting to just go for those quick wins, right?
Mm-hmm.
But McKeown challenges us to go a little deeper. So instead of just decluttering your desk, how can you apply that 80-20 rule to your calendar,
Right.
your client list,
Yeah.
your daily habits?
Okay, now this is interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not about doing less. It's about prioritizing.
Yes.
Ruthlessly prioritizing what will move the needle most.
Exactly. He even gives this really kind of powerful question that he suggests we ask ourselves before committing to anything new.
Okay, let's hear it.
If I didn't have this opportunity, how much would I be willing to do to acquire it?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right.
It forces you to cut through all the hype and really assess the true value.
And that leads perfectly into the next essential skill, the art of saying no, gracefully but effectively. It's funny, saying no is hard.
It is.
But it's like a muscle, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can strengthen it with practice.
Yeah.
And the payoff is huge.
Totally.
It frees up our time and energy for what really matters.
It's about creating space for what McKeown calls essential thinking.
Yes.
And it's not just clearing your inbox. It's like clearing your mind
Yes.
to make room for deeper reflection and, insight.
He makes this comparison to the work of a journalist.
Yeah, okay.
Someone like the late Nora Ephron.
Mm-hmm.
She was known for, sharp wit, insightful writing.
Right.
But McKeown points out that her real genius was this ability
Okay.
to sift through all the noise and find the real story.
To find those hidden connections.
Exactly.
They give it all meaning.
And McKeown argues that we can all kind of cultivate this journalistic mindset
Okay.
in our own lives, right?
Right.
So instead of getting bogged down in the day-to-day, we need to be asking ourselves, what's the real story here?
Totally, yeah.
What really matters in this situation?
It's so easy to get caught up in the weeds,
It is.
to focus on the wrong things.
Yeah.
He even gives that, kind of chilling example of the Eastern Airlines Flight 401 crash,
Oh, wait.
where the investigators found that the plane was working perfectly.
Wow.
It crashed because the crew was so fixated on this tiny little issue,
Oh, wow.
a faulty landing gear indicator light,
Ah,
that they completely lost sight of the bigger picture, their altitude.
yeah, that's a tough one.
It's a sobering reminder
It is.
that even small distractions can have huge consequences
Yeah.
if we let them take all of our attention.
And that's why McKeown talks about creating space for reflection
Okay.
and play.
Hold on, play. I thought we were supposed to be focusing on work here.
I know, right?
Not slacking off.
It seems kind of counterintuitive.
Okay.
McKeown says that play is actually really important for creativity
Okay.
and problem solving. So
How so?
it helps us tap into a different part of our brain
Okay.
to explore different possibilities,
Mhm.
make connections that we might not have otherwise.
So it's about, like, giving our minds permission to wander
Yeah,
without an agenda.
exactly. It's about stepping away from the screens,
Putting down the to-do list.
putting down the to-do list,
Yeah.
engaging in things that bring us joy,
Yeah.
that spark our curiosity.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like when you're stuck on a problem and you, like, take a walk, you take a shower,
Right.
and then suddenly the answer just hits you.
Exactly. And speaking of giving our minds a break,
Okay.
McKeown also emphasizes the importance of something else
What's that?
that we often overlook.
Okay.
Sleep.
Oh, please don't tell me you're going to start preaching about 8 hours a night.
From-
I'm lucky if I get 6.
I hear you. But McKeown makes a really compelling case for why sleep is so important
Okay.
for essentialists.
Okay.
He tells a story about, I think his name was Jeff,
Okay.
this high-achieving executive who was just burning the candle at both ends,
Oh, I know the type.
constantly traveling,
Yeah.
working crazy hours, sacrificing sleep,
Yeah.
and it caught up with him.
What happened?
His health got so bad that he had to make a choice. Medication for the rest of his life.
Oh, wow.
Or completely disconnecting for a year to recover.
He chose to disconnect. Right.
He did.
Wow. That's a really stark reminder
It is.
that our health is an asset.
Yeah,
We need to protect it,
absolutely.
not exploit it.
And there's some really interesting research about this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was this study on violinists,
Okay.
and they found that the top performers, they slept an hour longer than average,
Wow.
and they also took much longer naps.
Interesting.
And it wasn't just about rest.
Okay.
It was about giving their brains time to really consolidate all that learning.
So we've got to make time for essential thinking.
Yes.
Play, sleep.
Yes.
But how do we get better at saying no to all those shiny distractions?
Right?
The things that seem like good opportunities on the surface.
Yeah, so McKeown suggests a couple of strategies.
Okay, let's hear them.
One is to create what he calls social contracts.
Social contracts. Okay.
Yeah, it's about being really upfront with the people in your life,
Okay.
about your priorities, your boundaries.
Yeah.
So there's less room for, misinterpretations later on.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Because it's setting those expectations early on.
Exactly.
Instead of trying to backpedal later.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything formal.
Right.
It can be as easy as saying, hey, my family's really important to me,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not available for work calls after 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Or, I'm focusing on this big project right now,
Right.
so I'm going to have to decline that meeting, but thanks for thinking of me.
It's about respecting your own time
Yes.
and energy
Exactly.
as well as the other person's.
Exactly. And then if you're struggling to let go of something, he suggests trying what he calls a reverse pilot.
A reverse pilot.
Yeah. So instead of adding a new commitment, experiment by removing one.
Okay.
So let's say you're feeling overwhelmed by, your volunteer work.
Okay.
Instead of quitting cold turkey,
Right.
just scale back your involvement for a few weeks.
Okay.
See what happens.
That's a cool idea.
Right.
It's like dipping your toe in the water before you jump in.
Exactly.
Gives you a chance to assess the real impact without
Exactly.
like burning bridges or anything.
And then once you've made that decision to cut out the non-essential stuff,
Yeah.
McKeown says the next hurdle is making sure that we're executing well
Yeah.
on the essential things and making that as smooth and effortless as possible.
So how do we do that? How do we make it easier to show up
Yeah, that's the question, right?
for the things that really matter?
McKeown says this is where the idea of flow comes in.
Flow.
And he talks about how routines, especially when we do them consistently,
Yeah.
can create this sense of flow.
Okay.
Remember that example of Michael Phelps's pre-race routine?
Oh, right. He had every little detail planned out, right?
He did.
Down to a science.
The goggles, the stretches, like everything.
Exactly.
And, we're not all Olympic athletes,
Right.
but we can use that same principle in our own lives.
Okay.
By creating routines around our essential tasks,
Mm-hmm.
we're basically automating those smaller decisions
Right.
and actions
Which frees up our brain power
for the important stuff.
for the big picture.
Yes.
You like that.
And then finally, McKeown reminds us about the importance of what he calls buffering.
Buffering.
Yeah, basically adding extra padding to our time estimates.
Oh, for when things go wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To account for the unexpected.
You're talking about the planning fallacy. It
Yeah.
gets me every time.
I know. It gets us all.
I always underestimate how long things are going to take.
But
Uh.
by adding in a buffer, even if it's just 30% or 50%,
Okay.
we're creating that margin for error,
Mm-hmm.
that breathing room
Yeah.
to handle those hiccups.
Right, because there are always hiccups.
Always.
This has been really insightful.
It has.
But I'm curious,
Yeah.
how do we keep that focus on the essential stuff over time?
Yeah.
Because, life throws curveballs. How do we make sure we don't get pulled back in
Right.
to, all that non-essential stuff?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? That's where the rubber meets the road,
Yeah.
For McKeown, true essentialists,
Mm-hmm.
they're masters of focus.
Okay.
Not just in the moment, but like long term.
Mm-hmm.
They have this amazing way of tuning out the noise
Right.
and just staying locked in on what really matters,
Yeah.
even when things get crazy.
Well, how do they do that?
Yeah.
What's their secret?
It's not really a secret so much as just, a commitment.
Okay.
It's about constantly reminding yourself of your priorities,
Okay.
why they matter, what you're willing to give up to go after them.
It's about designing a life
Yeah,
that reflects those priorities.
exactly.
Even when it means, saying no to things that look really good in the moment.
It's about making choices
Yeah.
based on your values,
Yeah.
your goals.
Mm-hmm.
Not just reacting to, like
Yeah.
the latest demand on your time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's not a one-time thing.
Right.
It's like this ongoing practice, this discipline.
You always got to be evaluating,
Yeah.
adjusting, recommitting.
Totally.
This has been fantastic.
It has.
A really great deep dive into this whole idea of essentialism.
It is such a good book.
It is.
It really is.
I feel like I have a totally different way of thinking about my work and my life now.
It's a powerful reminder that we have way more control than we think, right?
Absolutely.
Like we get to choose
We do.
what we let into our lives,
Probably.
what we focus on,
Yeah.
how we spend our time and energy.
So if you're listening and you're feeling like a little overwhelmed or just, not fulfilled, I highly recommend checking out Greg McKeown's book,
It's so good.
Essentialism.
It could seriously change your life.
It really could.
Yeah.
And just remember,
Yeah.
even small changes can make a really big difference.
Absolutely.
So what's like one takeaway that you can start applying today?
Yeah. What would it look like for you to just eliminate the non-essential
Yeah,
and focus on what truly matters?
that's a great question.
That's what I hope you'll keep thinking about
Yeah.
long after this is over.